You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
So for the rest of the show, I thought we could talk about Bolivia. You know, the whole show last week, we just kind of let our interviewees talk. I spliced up the interviews to get some of the most relevant portions. And if you want to hear the full interviews, make sure that you're supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Each of those interviews I had to cut down to about 10 minutes, and they were out of, an hour-long interviews. So, so if you want to hear those, support us on Patreon. If you can't support us on Patreon, no worries. They'll be out for everybody in, 3 weeks or so. But David, what were some of your takeaways from those interviews?
I would say my biggest takeaway from all of the interviews that we were able to put together was the strength and power and resilience of the workers in Bolivia. That is, we talked to some of the most brilliant minds that's working in Bolivia. Becker. McNally, and it's thanks to Taylor, of course, but right. Through you and Taylor, y'all were able to pull off, in my opinion, probably one of the most important shows that I've ever seen on focusing on those workers in Bolivia. But I kept going back to the fact that we heard about the workers being murdered by, and the government basically calling a moratorium on any prosecution of the military and allowing them free reign to go into the streets and start executing people. And it was, for one, it was heartbreaking to hear that happen. But for two, the fact that those people continue fighting and continue coming together and just, it's amazing. It is exactly opposite of what we have seen for the past 40 years in America with the destruction of organized labor nationally. And it's so difficult. I think in America, none of us have been executed in the last generation. Well, most of us hadn't. There's been some violence on picket lines and things like that, but nothing like that. Nothing like the military that we hadn't seen in 100 years. But morally, we've been decimated, and it's so hard to get people to come together on these issues. But they still believe in worker solidarity, and they're still out in their community fighting for each other. Yeah,
well, the single person embodiment of that is Patrice Arce.
Yeah.
Patrice Arce, Thomas Becker talked about this in our interview. She was beaten, sexually assaulted, partially scalped, dragged through the streets, told to denounce her party and the workers' movement. And she said, "You can do whatever you want to me. I'm going to be fighting for the working people of Bolivia." And now she's in the government.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Long-haired preachers come out every night.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. We were kind of giving like a debrief on our Bolivia, on the Bolivia interviews. And, David was talking about how his kind of biggest takeaway is the resiliency and the fight that the workers have in Bolivia. And I was talking
solidarity.
And solidarity. I mean, it is really amazing. And the embodiment of that was Patrice Arce, who was assaulted, who was partially scalped, dragged through the streets, and told to denounce her party, denounce working people. And she said, "You can do whatever you want to me. You can kill me. I'm not going to do that." And now she has been duly elected again into the parliament. And it's just really a story of she's like kind of the embodiment of the resiliency of working people and their advocates in Bolivia. And
not only the resiliency, but something else that comes to mind that we constantly talk about on this show is they haven't allowed a lot of corporate, political parties to separate the working class in Bolivia. And, I fought you. Well, I won't say I fought you, but I was dismissive early on of a Bolivia show. And then as we began doing the interviews, it really spoke to me about we can learn a lot from these workers. But one of the biggest things that I learned is the fact that in America, we've allowed these corporate entities, the Democrats and the Republicans, they've done a wonderful job of dividing all of the workers across the United States and picking a camp and fighting these cultural fights that literally affect almost no one that we know, but they keep everybody stoked, feared, hatred of each other instead of all the workers coming together. And that's the biggest takeaway from Bolivia is the fact that all of these workers understand exactly what they need, and they are forming a worker party surrounded around their demands and their needs instead of constantly. I mean, how many times has the Republicans and the Democrats both promised us something in a campaign and never ever deliver on it? It's constant,
right?
And so they haven't allowed it's like we never learn from our mistakes. We keep buying into the same horse crap every 4 years.
Well, and how effective it's been. It's really amazing the stuff that the MAS government, President Evo Morales, were able to do while they were in power. And it's amazing that they were able to throw off a coup government backed by right-wing forces in Central and South America and backed by the United States. And, it wasn't just that they were able to vote out a fascist. It's that
a murdering fascist.
Right. But it wasn't even that they were able to vote. It's like they were so powerful that they forced the government to hold a vote. The government was trying their best not to hold a vote, but they went out on strike. They went out on general strikes. They blockaded roads. They were very strategic and very powerful and very effective, and they were able to force a fascist coup government to hold elections and force them to concede when they lost. That is real power. That is real power for working people. And, that it's power that has been used to lift up poor people in Bolivia. They have cut their poverty rate in half, cut their extreme poverty rate in half. They have industrialized sections of Bolivia that have, they've built roads. They've brought electricity out to a lot of places in Bolivia that didn't have it before under the Morales government. I mean, it's really, really amazing the things that they've been able to do and the way that they were able to do it. I learned a lot. And one of the things that I kind of kick around, of course, labor unions in the United States are really kind of de facto basically supportive of the Democratic Party. And I don't know, one of the things that I've thought about is just like, if we're able to elect these two Democrats in Georgia and still like they don't pass the PRO Act and they don't do anything good for working people, they don't fight for us, like, I don't know. I would probably be close to supporting like just a total and complete stop on using our PACs for electoral processes until we can figure out what the hell is going on.
We talked about it last night. I shot you a message, and I'm not going to bring up her name, but because she's a fellow labor activist, and I'm not going to put anybody down on the radio that we all struggle. We all are fighting for workers. But, we talked about it last night, and the fact that this specific person came on a national show and was very slow to condemn a lot of the things that are happening on the Democratic side because, and it's simply because they are we are beholden to them as opposed to they are being beholden to us. And we've got to turn that around to where not just one party is beholden to us, but both parties are beholden to us.
Yeah, there is a tweet that, and so, we've talked about this, how unions it is illegal for unions to use dues money for political campaigns, okay? Like, I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying here, but union members can voluntarily donate, aside from dues, to political action,
just as anybody else can. Any other worker in the world.
We can donate to PACs, and so lots of unions do have separate PACs, and they use those PACs that their members donate to support campaigns. And so the one union, the Laborers Union, spent $25 million from their PACs and from their affiliated PACs in 2020 supporting Democrats. And that
mostly Democrats.
There was a few Republicans, of course, but mostly Democrats. And somebody mentioned that could have funded 400 full-time organizers, and which would have been a better investment for those workers, for that union, for the labor movement.
You're in a catch-22.
Yeah, you're in a catch-22 because you've got to be involved in the political process. Of course, you've got to let politicians know your demands and what is going to be good for your members. But how much resources should we really be devoting to electoral politics versus how much should we be devoting to organizing? And I'm very, the Labor Council here in North Alabama, we're organizing phone banking and postcard writing for the elections in Georgia in support of Warnock and Ossoff. But man,
specifically in support of the PRO Act, that needs to be said.
Right. Yeah,
I could care less who is running for office. We want the PRO Act passed.
The Protecting the Right to Organize Act is very important for the labor movement. And if Warnock and Ossoff get in and the Democrats cannot pass the PRO Act in a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate with a Democrat in the White House, I would be very open to a full and complete stop on our PACs supporting Democrat until we can figure out what the hell is going on, because the buck has to stop somewhere. We've got to get something out of our support for politicians. And I understand politics is dirty, and you win some and you lose some, and you have to be willing to play that game. But if they're not willing to play that game with us, we've got to, the buck has to stop somewhere.
And if any Republicans want to support the PRO Act, call us.
Yeah, call us. Ted Cruz
we'll
said
get you some money.
Right. Ted Cruz said that the Republicans are the party of the working class. Prove it.
Prove it.
Prove it. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your time. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week and get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments throughout the week. And we also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So you can see if we're on your listening platform of choice. You can go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. And if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, then consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report.